All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, it is, of course, draft season. So let's bring in our resident expert, Mr. Hadi Kalakeche, to talk about where the Avalanche could go at pick number 24. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me today, we're doing a special draft crossover episode with Locked On NHL Prospects. That is Mr. Hadi Kalakeche, who is joining us. A very busy man he is, but that hair is looking wonderful as always. It is the best looking lettuce on the NHL Podcast Network.
You're kidding me, right? I woke up like this, man. This is
dude. You woke up like this? I am impressed. But then again, anybody that has hair is automatically, better than myself at the Locked On Podcast Network in terms of the hair department. But this is your busy season, man. Like, how are you doing? How are you getting sleep in? How is your circadian rhythm going? Is everything okay in your world right now?
I think the eye bags speak for themselves. I've been quite busy lately. I'm working on putting out a top 96 breakdown of my top prospects on YouTube, which I kind of overestimated how long that takes in terms of editing. So I'm just going through this right now, day to day. But my top 128 is out on Twitter. The chart version, if you will. Okay. No real details on the players, but I'm excited, man. This is a great draft to direct for the first time. I'm director of scouting at Ryder Prospects. It's been a fun draft to follow all year, and I've reached a record high this year of 1,200 plus viewings. So I'm up there.
I saw you post that. You are a man possessed, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we get into like a bunch of guys that we want to talk about, what do you think overall of this draft? Obviously, we know the top guys, and in the research that I do, I'm kind of seeing maybe. And there's always guys like this, but do you feel like there's more guys this year that you're seeing could be mid first round to mid second round? There's a bunch of guys where I'm seeing all over the place. Like, yeah, that guy could be 15, 16, 17 or 38, 39.
Yeah, absolutely. It really depends on what teams are looking for. If we're looking at the players that contenders usually search for, they could go as high as 19th, 20. I mean, Vegas and the Islanders are quite known for drafting these kind of surefire bets to make the NHL, these, low ceiling, high floor type of prospects. If you look in the public sphere, usually we're a bit lower on those just because we like upside. We can afford to. Our necks aren't on the line. But yeah, overall, I think that's the kind of discrepancies. You've got a lot of low ceiling, high floor type of prospects who could go anywhere, and you've got a good mix of upside in there, these kind of boomer bust prospects. So I've got for me, from 21 to 44 is a pretty tight tier of prospects. So there's not much of a gap between 21 and 44, I tell you.
Right. And the guy I want to start with is someone that my co-host Kyle and I talked about in a recent episode, and that's Trevor Connelly. Yeah. And you always get these guys that, great on the ice, and the questions are off of the ice. Mm-hmm. And he's one of those guys because of the off the ice stuff. You genuinely don't know where he could fall. And I think if you didn't have the off the ice problems, I don't think he'd be in the Avalanche world at number 24. But because of it, maybe they are. Where do you see him going?
Yeah, the thing is with Connelly's, the off-ice concerns have been well documented, but I also have some on-ice concerns with him. He's very much a junior prospect in the way that he creates. He's always, when he's passing to get an assist, not to build play incrementally. He doesn't really play chess. He's a very straightforward, in-your-face, deke through you, get to the net type of forward. So that's kind of, I call it the pond hockey syndrome. It's just kind of, playing in a flashy way that doesn't really translate to the NHL. At the same time, that was exactly Tim Stützle's problem in his draft year, and he's turned out pretty well. So there's still, I think that there's ways for Connelly to get around that. But for me, I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was the U18 World Championship performance that he had in the gold medal game against Team Canada. The game was tied heading into the third period. I was looking at that game, looking specifically at Trevor Connelly and figuring out, okay, how does he handle do or die, must win, must perform scenarios? And he threw a completely unnecessary hit and took a 5-minute major and an ejection and Team Canada just took that game by the horns from that point on. So I think, limiting Connelly to on-ice concerns, I think reduces the level of concerns overall that are in this game, even on the ice. There's certainly some issues there as well. But in terms of pure skill, we're talking about an 8 to 12 level prospect for me. Yeah. If we're just talking about pure skill, not focusing on any other concerns overall in this game, he's just ridiculously skillful. So I wouldn't be surprised if teams let him slip to Colorado, and I have him 19th overall right now. So if he's available at 24th, I'd say go for it.
It's so funny you say 19 because that's exactly what we said on our episode. Who's at 19?
Yeah. Vegas
doesn't care. Vegas would take him 99 times out of 100 and not care about the outside chatter. I could see that happening. And for the Avalanche, we said we didn't really know if they would go that route, even if he was there, because of all the stuff that they have going on with Valnichuskin. Do they want to bring in that storyline too and have to answer those questions on top of all the Valnichuskin stuff? I don't know, but the talent on the ice is apparent. It is clearly there. One of the guys that I messaged you about first weeks ago was Cole Beaudoin, and I have not fallen out of love with him since I messaged you about him. And I feel like he is one of those guys that has gone up a little bit, not like through the roof, but when I first started kind of like doing my own research, he was that very late to early third round, maybe even mid third round. And I feel like now he is definitely in that Avalanche range. And in our mock draft for the Locked On NHL Network, he went before the Avs. Yeah. What are you seeing on him? I'm just falling in love with this guy and what he can bring.
Absolutely. I mean, he can deadlift deadlift 400 pounds, which is just absolutely ridiculous.
It's like this 395 pounds more than I can. That's crazy.
He's a freak athlete. I mean, it's absurd, and it's really evident on the ice. I call him a retrieval artist. So you dump a puck in his vicinity, he's grabbing it, and you can't stop him. It's not just the raw power; it's the technique and board battle. This is a player who just understands how to leverage his weight, how to get under opponents' arms, how to pin them in ways that they can't access the puck, but he can. So the retrieval game, the board game, the cycle game is really refined. On top of that, he's got a really good mid-range shot. He's really good at lifting pucks from in tight, and he gets a lot of opportunities to play that because after he intervenes along the boards and plays a little high pass, his first and only path is to the net. Goes straight there, plants his body in front, out-muscles defenders in front, gets a stick on pucks, that kind of stuff. It's a really projectable cycle game. He's a real play extender. So he's not necessarily the type of play driver, the type of guy who's going to carry pucks across lanes and flash you with skill. I'd even say that his hands are kind of below average. But overall, his game is just it's really based on all the things that NHL coaches look for on the cycle, on the forecheck, on retrievals. He plays a very coach-friendly game. And I think this is a prospect who, again, low ceiling, high floor. I'd be very, very surprised if we're not talking about an NHLer in Beaudoin at the end of the day. But most likely in a third line role, but he could be one of the best third line centers in the NHL when all is said and done.
The one thing I hear about him, the big question, I guess, was his skating. And I've said before, like, I don't put so much stock into skating, but other people do. It's just not one of those. I feel like if he's a projected first round guy, he can skate. He's playing the game of hockey. He can skate. I get there's nuances and stuff to like that. Is that something you saw with him? Is it so much of a concern where it's like, maybe he goes down a tick or two?
It's a weakness. It's a definite weakness, but it's not a concern by any means. He doesn't need his skating to leverage his profile of play, the way that he plays. He doesn't need blistering speed or really good agility. He's good on his edges. He's got a powerful base. He's got a wide skating base, which makes him really tough to knock off of pucks. He doesn't need to be faster than opponents. He's always stronger than him. He's always stronger than them, and he's always better positioned than them. So it's really not a problem in terms of how it fits within the greater scheme of how his game works. It's not an issue. But if you look at it in isolation, obviously he's a worse skater than most first rounders available here. But like I said, it doesn't hinder his game, so it's not a concern to me.
Okay. And I was saying, like, his projection has gone up. I think maybe one of the guys that I've looked at that his projection has really gone through the roof is Teddy Stiga. Mm-hmm. And he was there in our mock draft, and I was really tempted to go that route. We'll get to who I selected a little bit later, but he was there, and I was really contemplating between him and the guy we went with. But I like his game too, and I feel like his trajectory is, I mean, would you say he's one of the guys who's risen the most
For sure, certainly for me. As the season's gone on, as I got to watch more and more of him, especially more and more of him away from Cole Eiserman, I've realized how much of an individual skillful player he is. He's a rock star. I mean, his work rate is off the charts. He's always pedal to the metal. He's a real good puck accelerator, so he's not the type of player who's going to slow down the puck once it gets to him. He's going to speed it up. He's going to bring it up to a pace that others can't match. And his playmaking from that speed is ridiculous. His ability to make passes through seams. He connects plays extremely well, plays these small give and goes. He's got decent defensive value, nothing overwhelming on that side. But the thing that's really made him kind of climb the most is just how projectable his transition game is. You can see the glimpses of how that works in the NHL. He's not a player who hangs on to pucks forever, and he's also not a player who gets rid of it too quickly. The timing, the execution on his transition plays is so good. And that's what made him kind of a bona fide top 25, top 30 pick. He's at 26 on my board, in the same tier as the kind of 21 to 29 range. So anywhere within that, I feel comfortable with him. Very skilled player and a very effective one as well.
All right, let's get our first break in here. There's a couple other guys I want to ask you about, and the Avs don't pick after the first round until the fourth round. So maybe a couple guys that could be available or names to keep in the back of your mind when that comes around. And then, some of the picks they had last year and a prospect or two in their current system, how you think they're projecting so far. So let's get all into that right after this. Let's hear from Game Time. It makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the things that we love about the Game Time app: priority last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. Flash deals, they have the zone deals, all in pricing. The price you see is the price you pay with no surprise fees at checkout. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's get back into a couple more of these prospects that could be around when the Avalanche pick at number 24. I wanted to ask about, I love this guy's name, Jett Luchanko. Just rolls off the tongue. And when you have a name like Jett, you better be fast. And he's tell me about him. What do you think about him? He's one of those guys that, do you think he'll be around at 24 though?
I think he will. He will. There's a solid chance he is. I think him and Beaudoin, like for me, they're back to back right now. He's just below Beaudoin in my rankings. Jett Luchanko, his first name's fitting. He flies all over the ice. His skating is elite. It's not just in terms of pure speed; it's in terms of agility, his ability to make plays within motion. So he doesn't need to kind of stop skating or stop moving his feet to corral a puck, to receive a pass, to take a shot. Everything's so fluid with him, and he's one of the most athletic prospects in this draft as well. Crushed the combine, both the NHL combine and the CHL combine. Was one of the best performers in both. He's a defensively responsible center who plays a really good translatable kind of defensive game. Great work rate, but also great composure. Hits the right lanes, puts his stick in the right lanes at the right moments. I was looking at the start of the year, I was a bit lower on him because I couldn't really see what the upside was in terms of offensive potential. No, with Beaudoin, for example, you've got the shot, you've got the ability to get off the boards, to get to the net front. I didn't really see much of that with Luchanko, but the more the year went on, the more I realized it's the vision and the playmaking with him. He's able to hit seams, he's able to play quick give and goes, he's able to get open in space after making his pass. He follows every pass with a rush to a certain area that's even better. He improves the condition of the puck with every play he makes. That's what made me turn on him. That's what made me realize that, this is a first rounder for sure. I like his game, and he's an August 06 birthday, so one of the youngest players in the draft as well. He's got tons of runway.
Very nice. Yeah, I do like his game. One that I think a lot of people are kind of enamored with. I'm one of those people, and it's the height. And it is Dean Letourneau, who is just a towering giant out there, but is not playing against the best of competition. But you can also turn that and say, he's not playing his best competition, but look what he did against that competition. And now where he's going into college, so maybe we'll get a little bit of a more fleshed out report on him after a year. Interesting player. I think he's very I'm kind of enamored with him, and just to see where he goes. I don't think the Avalanche will bring him in at that. Maybe it's a little bit of a reach, but he's one of those guys I just feel like a team is going to fall in love with him just based on his size and what he can do at that height is pretty amazing. What do you think?
For sure. I have my reservations with Letourneau. He's 47th in my rankings right now. I'll get into why, but just to focus on the strengths, like you said, 6'7", 210 pounds, massive center. It's ridiculous. And he's surprisingly fluid and coordinated for a guy this big, especially a guy this big playing at such a low level. Usually those guys have no coordination. They're like gazelles on ice. It's absurd, but he makes it work. He makes it work pretty well. He's really violent as well. I don't think he necessarily seeks out contact. It's just that if he has a lot of opportunities to truck through guys at this level, right? And he does. He scored about 61 goals in 66 games or something like that. Like his production's off the charts. And he's actually pushed up his college arrival date by a year. So he was supposed to join Boston College in 2025-26, but he'll instead be joining them next year. So we're going to have a much better idea of how his projection works next year. My concerns are more on the level of his creation. With guys this big, if you're looking at the Tage Thompson build, with Tage Thompson, I mean, there are people have been comparing the two. I think with Tage Thompson, you've got a unique skill set as a guy who handles the puck incredibly well for his size. With Letourneau, I think his handling is a bit of a weakness. Even though he scored 61 goals in 66 games, I think his playmaking is better than his goal scoring, much better, in fact. I don't like the kind of mechanics that go into his shot, but the playmaking I think you can build around with Letourneau. If you can make him a true kind of playmaking forward especially if you can improve his habits, his decisions, which are the biggest weakness for me in his game right now, and the main reason why I'm a bit sour on him. There's a really wide range of outcomes with Letourneau. You might not get an NHLer, but you might also get a top 6 forward. So it's just about how much you want to mitigate that risk and how confident you are in your development team. He's for sure what he is a bet and a vote of confidence in your development team.
Does he go in the first round?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
When's the last time a 6'7" forward did not go in the first round?
You know what I mean? But all of those things you laid out are valid, and it's like you really don't know if it's going to work. But I'm with you. I kind of think that some teams are going to fall in love with that and just go
absolutely.
that route. One more I'm going to throw out to you before we get to like the fourth round guys. Ryder Ritchie and the Avs did, and we'll get to Callum Ritchie in a minute, but the Avs did pick a Ritchie last year. Could they go 2 Ritchies 2 years in a row? And your thoughts on him, because I look at guys who like the it's not I guess it's a knock on them, but like they're thought of like, hey, they're on the trajectory of they're a top 10 guy, and then maybe they don't have the best season, or they didn't take, everyone says take that next step, the next progression. And I guess it doesn't seem like Ritchie did, but in my head, I'm like, well, we're talking about 16, 17-year-old kids here. Like they're not all going to be just on this projection path, all of them at the same. So would somebody be getting something like that? Hey, if he's just maybe takes an extra year or a couple years to develop, fine. Like the way that this is not like the NFL where they have to step in right away and be at the forefront right off the get-go. You can bring in guys like him, let him mature a little bit more, and then holy crap, you might have had when we're looking back and doing the redrafts in like 4 or 5 years, could this be a guy that people are going to look at and be like, why did we not go with him? Just because he didn't take that quote unquote next step in his 1 year.
Yeah, so with Ritchie, what I look for with these types of prospects who are still very raw, who need to develop some areas of their game, is how clear is the path, right? Like, if you work on this thing, how many more things do you have to stack on top of that new skill you adopted in order to be an effective NHLer? With Ryder Ritchie, the main issue for me is the skating posture. It's really specific. He kind of splays his feet out in kind of an A shape once he gets the puck in the offensive zone, which it makes it easier to dangle, but it makes it really tough to be evasive, to be elusive, and it puts him in situations where he can, if a defenseman hits him wrong, that's an MCL tear, like immediately. It's a pretty severe issue. I call it the Alex Galchenyuk syndrome, because Galchenyuk had that same problem, got a knee injury, and look where he's at now, right? So that's a concern with Ritchie. The skill level's certainly there, but I think he was placed in a role with Clarence Halbert that really didn't fit what he's good at. So for me, Ryder Ritchie is a complementary forward who's really good at carrying pucks up the ice, feeding it to a teammate, and letting that teammate do the work in the offensive zone. With Prince Albert, he was forced to do everything. He was forced to be the primary play driver on his line, and that just doesn't really work with what Ritchie does really well, which is, again, complement players, play at high speeds, carry pucks up the ice, play give and goes, and kind of work off his teammates. We saw what he's capable of at the U18 Worlds. I thought that was the best Ryder Ritchie we'd seen all season, and it was because he was placed in kind of a third-line role where he wasn't forced to be the primary guy on his line. He had a bit more support on his line, was able to delegate to his teammates, play off of them. And again, that's when I saw the best version of Ryder Ritchie. So I don't think he's necessarily going to be this top six, play driving forward, even though the skill is there. It's just the way he approaches the game, the way he thinks the game is extremely complementary. So if you can add him to a line with, some higher skill guys on a second, maybe third line, you've got a decent player. But like you said, he's going to take more time. But again, that's fine, right?
Definitely, yeah. I think if you're in a position where you can select a guy like that, you go for it. Now, you mentioned being benefiting from the lines you're playing on, stuff like that. That's how I feel about, and I'm going to butcher his last name, that Tarek Parasak. Yeah, that's what I feel about him. Like, obviously, he has a ton of offensive talent, but did he not benefit from being on excellent line mates?
The thing with Parasak is he is the best complementary player I've seen in the last two drafts. The way that he complements players is what makes him so effective. Yes, he was playing on a really good Prince George Cougars team with some of the best forwards in the WHL, but there's a reason why he made it work. There's a reason why he scored 100 points as a rookie. It's because he's so good at exactly that. He's a pure facilitator. He's a pure supporter. He uplifts everyone he plays with. It's not that he kind of exploits his teammates' strengths, is that he plays off of them so well, and it all has to do with hockey sense with Parasak. That's the issue that I have with Ryder Ritchie is he's a lot more simplistic than Parasak. And that's why I have Parasak 25th and Ryder Ritchie 35th in my rankings.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, with Parasak, it's all in the brain. His processing of the game is absolutely ridiculous. I've fallen in love with this prospect since pretty much day one. And all he's done all year is just kind of add layers to his offensive game. He's gotten better at scoring from mid-range, better playmaking, better stick handling, and he's a really good two-way player as well. He played on the second penalty kill for Prince George, who aren't lacking in defensive forwards either. So there's a lot to work with here.
I'm seeing a lot of mocks with the Avalanche taking him.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, okay, and then I looked at him like, I got hung up on that, and that's why I talk to people like you to say don't read too much into that. All right, fourth rounders, throw out a couple names there just to keep in the back of our brains when the Avalanche go after they pick in the first round and they wait until the fourth round. Who could be out there? That's some good guys.
There's a bunch of options. I know for a fact that Colorado's going to be needing some right-handed Ds in their system. There's one from the QMJHL, and I'm not really one to pump the tires of QMJHL defensemen usually, but Alexis Bernier for me has been a real standout this year. He's really simplistic, straightforward, meat and potatoes, risk-free, but when I say risk-free, it doesn't mean that he doesn't make really good passes or take shots from the point or all that. It's just that he doesn't activate hard or try to push above the circles in the offensive zone. He's risk averse, but he's still able to make plays with the puck on top of being a really good shutdown defenseman. So if you're looking for that type of player, I think that would complement Colorado's blue line long-term really well. And I'm also looking at some overagers that the Avalanche could be targeting. I think Anthony Romani has a decent chance of being available. He was second in scoring in the OHL this past season, and top in goals with 58. He went from this kind of poor skating, not too physical forward to just being this extremely translatable forward on both sides of the ice. He's added a bunch of little details in his game that make him really capable of creating, and I think he's got a decent chance of being this middle six playmaking forward with a decent shot. So those are two players I think the Avalanche could target and be really happy with.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see for that. And I think a lot of Avalanche fans just turn to hey, they got Cale Makar's brother in the 7th round. So, and he hasn't played a game yet. They're still holding on to, we can get some guys in the later round. So we'll see where that goes. All right, let's get our last break in. We'll bring up quickly the picks from last year, how Hadi feels like they're doing so far. And then we'll get to our selection that we had in our Locked On NHL Network mock draft. So we'll do that next. All right, Locked On Avalanche fans, we want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, and that's the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. If you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your own hockey franchise, do you think you could run the Avalanche better than Chris McFarland or even Joe Sakic? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, lead it to glory, hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. And as an Avalanche fan, you know there is no off season. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why we think you're going to love playing this game. So Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want. And by the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. So make sure to check it out today. Download the game, visit hockeygm.app or look it up on any app store. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today. All right, Hadi. So we're a year removed almost from last year's draft. Avs had 2 picks last year in the first round. One was Callum Ritchie, and the other was Mikhail Gulyayev, who was my pick in our mock draft from last year. And it technically counts. I mean, he was their second pick of the first round, but hey, it still counts. So I'm hopefully going to keep my streak alive of correct picks for the Avs. I know a lot of people are excited about Ritchie for the Avs in their system. Gulyayev, I think maybe has fallen off the radar a little bit just in terms of because he's playing overseas. So I know, but still give us your kind of revisiting of how you think they're doing and the kind of projection that they're on.
Well, I mean, Gulyayev has been playing full-time in the KHL and been playing about 17 to 20 minutes a night. So I'd call that a success so far for a draft plus one 18, 19-year-old. Great work so far from him. Took his team to the playoffs as well and continued performing and actually stepped up his minutes in the playoffs. Fortunately, he was kicked out in the second round, but I thought he was extremely effective as a two-way defenseman. He's really good at kind of matching opponents' footwork in transition on defense, kind of staying with opponents, staying in front of the guy in front of him. And up the ice, he breaks the puck out extremely well. Great kind of stretch passes out of his zone. I want to see a bit more carrying from him, just a bit more play driving directly, because I think he definitely has the footwork and the hands to do it. I just don't think the system right now in Omsk really forces him to do it. But I feel like once he gets to the AHL, he's going to see more scenarios where he can just skate the puck up the ice. And in Callum Ritchie's case, I've watched a lot of Oshawa this year because they have a draft eligible that's really interesting, and Beckett Seneca and a couple other guys as well. But with Callum Ritchie, I mean, the skill set has certainly been there. And, he was scoring a decent amount of goals last year and was kind of pegged in as a goal scorer. I've always said he's a better playmaker than a goal scorer. And he showcased it this year by almost doubling his assist totals, 52 assists in 80 games, along with the 28 goals he scored. Was their best player in the playoffs as well. Really stepped up his performances in the OHL playoffs. And again, he's a performer. He's a dog on a bone. He's a pest away from the puck as well. Not afraid to throw the body, post whistle shenanigans. He's going to be a great player for Colorado. Maybe not as a top liner, but I'd say as a middle six kind of energy guy. He's definitely got it, and he's got the playmaking skill to stick around.
And I want to bring up Oscar Olausson. Not that the Avs fans don't know what's going on with him, because he's played a lot with the Colorado Eagles. Yep. Only played a handful of games at the NHL level. But I kind of wanted to bring it up as like when you were scouting him and where he went and the things that you wanted him to kind of like improve on, or where he could improve, or what he was good at. Do you feel like he's still on that projection, or is it? Do you feel like he should be at this point more of a constant at the Avalanche level, or no? We're okay. Like he's doing what he's supposed to do. Where are you standing with him?
He's still 21. I wouldn't read too much about it. He's got a decent level of pace in his game, and at that, with the frame that he has, 6'2", almost 190 pounds. Having the pace that he brings is really interesting. And I think the main issue with Olausson has always been how does he slow down the game? How does he work at lower paces? I think that's the thing he needs to figure out. And right now, the AHL, because of the high pressure that comes with that league, because of what I mean by high pressure is you don't have a lot of time with your puck touches. It's not very long before a guy's in your face, right? Mm-hmm. the issue with that is it's a lot of prospects who play at high paces. They reach that and they think, oh, I need to up the pace even more now. When Olausson, what he needs to work on is slowing down the pace and working at better at low paces, learning how to draw players in, take a couple extra puck touches, wait for the right moment, slip a puck under their stick, that kind of thing. I still haven't seen that in the limited AHL tape I've seen of Olausson this year, but I'm still hopeful. He's a really smart player for the type of game that he plays, and he kept the exact same point line in about 24 less games this season. So the production's gone up. It's just a matter of just keeping steady course with him and not trying to force him into the NHL too early, because he'll get the same problem he's facing in the AHL right now, which is time and space going to be even less available, and his reaction's still going to be, oh, okay, I need to up my pace even more, when again his solution is to slow things down.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just as fans, I mean, this is true for most fan bases, like, you want first round picks to just pick up the pace, and like, why aren't you here yet? And it's like, no, sometimes they need a little bit of time. So I don't think many people have thrown in the towel on him, but the time of like, hey man, like, let's take that next step that I was talking about. I think as fans are like, it needs to be pretty soon, because they're having some problems with the cap, and they need some of these younger guys to make that step pretty soon. So, all right. Last thing we're going to get to here is, of course, the NHL mock draft. You are doing you have two episode special with your co-host. What's his name?
Sebastian. Hi.
Sebastian. I don't think Andrew. Sebastian. Yeah. And you broke down all of our picks. We had obviously the 24th pick. There were a number of names that I was considering. Stiga was definitely one of them. Who else? Emil Hemming was another one that I was thinking about. Yep. Andrew Basha was one I was thinking about. I thought maybe that was a little bit of a reach. I don't know.
I have him 22nd. He's the opposite of
really.
Reach,
Okay.
Yeah, I really like him.
And who was there? I think there was another one I was thinking on there. Maybe that there was a few guys.
Yeah.
But I went with and I'm gonna. It took me like 200 times to say Pavel Francouz before I could get his name down pat. But Sasha Beauvais.
Boisvert. You're close enough. It's a hard.
I mean, you have the pronunciation of all these.
I'm
names.
from Quebec. I've got it down.
This is beautiful how you say it. So I think I'm just gonna record you saying it, and every time you say it, just hit play on something.
Yeah, absolutely. Got it.
So I like it. I like his game, and the reason why I was a little bit hesitant was because it's not like, I don't know, he's not like that like sexy pick where he does something amazing. He just does everything really good.
Yeah.
And you feel comfortable just taking a guy where you feel like, yeah, I'll take him. And I'm pretty confident he could play NHL minutes and give you what you need. And for an Avalanche team where you don't need a guy to break into the top 6 right now, that's kind of why I went with him, just because I felt comfortable that he can just do what you need him to do. Yeah,
absolutely. That's Sasha Beauvais to a T. I mean, his ability to dictate the pace of play off his stick for a player that's as slow as he is. I mean, he's got a poor skating stride for sure. But he plays a power forward game. He drives to the net. He does a lot of little details right. He's extremely defensively responsible, and he's an extremely versatile scorer. So he doesn't have this one patented like curl and drag wrister like an Austin Matthews, or this year John Mustard is kind of that example of just a player with one specific shot that he does all the time. With Boisvert, it's forehand, backhand, one-timer, snapshot, slap shot. He's got them all, and he uses them in the right timing and at the right moments in game. So he's a goal scorer, power forward. He's a defensively responsible player. I'd expect him to be off the board way before 24th. I think NHL teams are going to love this type of style. But if he's available at 24th for the Colorado Avalanche, I think he's a fantastic pick given what they search for. And the kind of comparable I'd give to him would probably be like a Brock Besser in terms of the way that he approaches the game. And the situation that he's in right now is very similar to the situation Besser was in his draft year. So I think that if the Avalanche could get a Besser type at 24th overall in this draft, absolutely.
I think the other one I was considering was Michael Hage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you were me in that situation, and the guys who were available, where would you have gone?
Michael Hage, absolutely.
You would have gone Hage. Okay.
He's 16th on my board. I'm a very big fan of what Hage brings to the game, and given how I just talked about Boisvert, me telling you that I'm a bigger fan of Michael Hage should give you a good idea. He's so fluid. Everything he does is just chained together so beautifully. And he's improved his defensive game as the season has gone on as well. He used to be this really kind of north-south skater with like really good hands, a really good shot, really good passing, but he's added a layer of just processing, defensive awareness, timing, patience. He's so good. I'm really excited to see where he ends up.
I'm kind of kicking myself because that's the one that I'm going back and I'm like, I might, because I think you went like 28th in our draft.
26 to the Habs. Thank you for that, by the way.
I really appreciate that happening. Like, dude, I don't see that happening at all. But
yeah,
I'm happy with it. I'm going to stick with my pick, and the Avs will not be hiring me anytime soon for draft selections. But hey, you never know. You never know. I got it right once, and you can catch lightning in a bottle twice. All right, sir. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you are just super busy, so I really appreciate you taking some time. We are lucky to have you here over at Locked On NHL. So why don't you throw out where people can find you, your website, and all that other fun stuff?
For sure. Really appreciate the kind words. You can find me anywhere you find this. If you're watching on YouTube, just look up Locked On NHL Prospects. Our podcast is there. If you look up my name in the search bar on YouTube, you'll find my personal YouTube channel. But the one-stop shop is Twitter. It's Hadi K_scouting. If you're watching on YouTube, it's right below my face. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, same thing. Just look up Locked On NHL Prospects. You'll find our podcast. You'll find Sebastian and I's Twitter handles and everything we post. We've got some pretty interesting stuff coming out.
You doing any like watch parties or anything like that, or are you not that type where you just need to focus in and I can't be talking to other people while the draft is going on?
I will be at the draft.
You're going? Oh man,
tickets are booked. Everything's ready. It's waiting on the credentials, and we'll be in the media section. It's going to be great.
It was running through my mind of because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
I was considering it, decided against it. So I will live vicariously through you for this draft, sir. So thank you again for doing this. Really, really appreciate it. So
absolutely.
That will wrap it up for today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He's Mr. Hadi Kalakeche from Locked On NHL Prospects, and I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys later.